Everybody, Andrew Cuneo here. Duskmourn has just come out, so I figured I would try to dive into Standard a little bit. Tried a couple different deck ideas. This is the one that's been the most promising so far. It's a Reanimator deck, mostly because this card, Rite of the Moth, is sort of a throwback to Unburial Rites, which is a pretty good card in Standard. And it isn't often the case that you can reanimate things on turn 4 in Standard, which this gives you the ability to do that. And then there's also, the flashback component, so you get some value like you would from Unburial Rites. So that was kind of the impetus for making this deck. Obviously, if you're going to be reanimating something in Standard, Atraxa is the best option. And it's the best option. Well, it's not quite the best option in older formats, but it's extremely good even in older formats. Then there's also this new card, the Overlord of the Mistmoors, which, so if you're reanimating it, you get the 7 mana version. So you get a 6/6 and 2/2/1 flyers. You're getting 10 power. And if it attacks, you get, it gets pretty out of control because you get additional flyers every time it attacks. The other thing that's nice about this is that you can also just, I wouldn't say it's good to do it for 4 mana, but it is pretty respectable. So if you're not in a spot where you can set up a reanimation, you can just, play it on turn 4. Or if your opponent has some sort of graveyard hate that you're concerned about, you could also just, play it on turn 4. And it gives you a little bit of value as the game goes along. These impending cards, I think, are generally pretty good, but you want them in decks that are going to be able to extend the game. So sort of the rest of this deck is somewhat maybe not controlling, but it's certainly not beat down. It's just stuff to facilitate the reanimating and, some stuff to stay alive. So if you haven't set up the reanimation, then probably the rest of your cards are just things that are going to facilitate you staying alive to get to the point where this comes back. That's the only 2 new cards that aren't lands, but I do think that it's sort of enabling this archetype in a way that you couldn't really do it before. Like, I was looking at the what are the other options to reanimate, and I guess there's a Tali if you want to go into red, but there really aren't very good options beyond Atraxa, at least before this card came out. We've got 4 Cruelty of Gix. This is, I think, the second best way to reanimate something in Standard right now. A couple Sunfalls just because it's good. And then I've got discard enablers. So Liliana, obviously the way this deck works, you're going to have to pitch the reanimation target from your hand. There's no card like Entomb that's going to let you just put it in your graveyard. There is a new 3/1 that can put cards into your graveyard, but it has to attack and survive. It's not reliable, I would say, and constructed. A couple Lilianas. There's this card, Steamcore Scholar. This card is really good in this style of deck where you really want to be discarding Atraxa. So, I mean, that's what this card does for you. It draws you 2 cards, discards Atraxa, and you get a 2/2 flyer for your trouble. Then, rather than playing with Go for the Throats, I'm playing with Bitter Triumphs again because I want to be able to discard my Atraxas. Chart a Course, another enabler for discarding Atraxa. And then this is maybe a little bit weird. I've got 4 Duresses in my main deck. The logic behind this being is in the spots where Duress is good, it's really good. And then there's a fair amount of discarding stuff in this deck. So if you really don't want the Duress, you're maybe going to pitch it to Chart a Course or Steamcore Scholar. The other thing is that a lot of the times, if you can just get Atraxa into play and have it not die immediately, you're going to win the game. And so Duress is sort of like step 1 in that plan is, Duress whatever your opponent's answer is going to be, get the Atraxa into the graveyard, get it into play, and then because you've Duressed them, maybe they don't have the removal spell to get Atraxa out of play right away, so you get to untap and use whatever Atraxa found you and attack with your 7/7 lifelinker. So that's sort of the whole plan there. The other thing I'll say, having played with 4 Duresses in my main deck for a while, there are some decks in Standard that it's just great against. And even the aggressive creature decks do actually tend to play a decent number of non-creature cards. So there aren't really too many matchups where you're just like, wow, I wish I didn't have all these Duresses in my deck. Looking at the lands, there's a couple new lands. There's the Verges, which I've got the white-blue one and the blue-black one. There is not a white-black one because it's only allied colored ones. So those are the only new lands. These are pretty nice, I would say, especially for a deck where you're sort of splashing blue. I think these work best in decks where you're essentially, not heavily committed to all three colors, I would say, or like even if it's in a two-color deck, like if you're heavily one color and you're just lightly the other color, I think they kind of work good there. At least they're sort of free rolls, because if you think about it, like before I put these Gloomlake Verges in my deck, they were just going to be basic islands, and so I just upgraded basic islands to islands that sometimes tap for black, and kind of the same deal with the Floodfarm Verges. I do have 2 Cavern of Souls in my deck, which gives me a way to hard cast Atraxa. I only have 2 sources of green, so it comes up in long games, but it's not going to come up very reliably. You can also put the Cavern of Souls on Avatar Horror or Weird Detective. I mean, you don't choose both of those. You pick whichever one you prefer. It doesn't matter how you choose. So the Cavern of Souls can help you to cast your other creatures. And these are mostly just good in case you're playing against someone who is playing counters. Like there are some decks that play a little bit of permission. So this allows you to cast your creatures through that. You might think that it would be nice to be able to play a Verge to give you a little bit of backdoor access to green mana, but the Verge doesn't really work. The only one would be the green-white one, and in order to get white mana from that, you have to have a Plains, and I think that's just too high of a cost for the way this deck is. Like you don't want always green mana that's unreliably white mana, I would say. Because, this is like a double white card that the Cavern of Souls can cast, whereas a green-white Verge might not be able to cast it, basically. And also, there would be no purpose to... well, I guess if you had the green-white Verge and you got one other Plains, you could then cast Sunfall. But I think Cavern of Souls is just better. And then, like, the other dual lands that would have green attached to them, I think you're better off just playing Esper dual lands in their place. Like, if you look, I'm not maxed out on the Esper dual lands as it is. I have, I think, 7 of Surveil lands. Surveil lands are obviously great in a deck like this because, if you get to Surveil an Atraxa into your graveyard, it's like winning the lottery. Also, you can Surveil Rite of the Moth to get some value later on. Looking at the sideboard, I think there's some pretty good sideboard options. One thing that I realized when I was testing this deck before I started recording was, especially in the sideboarded games, you want to have pretty good options to tutor for with Stage 2 of Cruelty of Gix. That's kind of why I've got 1 copy of 3 Steps Ahead. 3 Steps Ahead is a way to loot it and Atraxa into your graveyard, but it's also just a hard counter you can find off of Cruelty of Gix if you're going to be playing like a long game where you are going to get to Atraxa, but you're not necessarily immediately going to win off of it. 3 Steps Ahead can be an important thing to tutor for, so that you play this on 2, get the 3 Steps Ahead, untap, reanimate the Atraxa, and you've got a counter in your hand is sort of the line of play you're going for. The 1 cut down's a little bit random. I just wanted another cheap removal spell. I will say that the cheap removal, I'm a little bit unclear on what's the best right now. So I've got cut down, I've got Pest Control, which this obviously could be temporary lockdown or Glistening Deluge. I'm not really sure which of those 3 is actually the best. And then 1 more Sunfall. This is against like mid-range creature decks. I do have 2 Harvester of Miseries, which are additional like small creature removal spells. The idea being that you can discard this on turn 2 and then potentially reanimate it on turn 4 or turn 5 to sweep the board. I think it works really well in this deck. got some Phyrexian Flesh Gorgers. I'm not really completely sold on these, but I wanted something that allowed me to gain life. Usually I play Shieldrids, but I wanted to try this just because it is an okay reanimation target as well. When Unleashes to Ashes, this is kind of a catch-all removal spell. It's, again, the fact that you can tutor for it off of Chapter 2 of Cruelty of Gix is why I think the first copy has a lot of value. The 2 Cease Desists. So the Cease is obviously if you play like some sort of a mirror-ish match. But it's mostly in the sideboard for Desist because I think that enchantment-based decks have really got taken off or have really improved a lot with Duskmourn because of Up the Beanstalk working with the Overlords, in particular the green one. I think I played against a lot of people that were like Up the Beanstalk, Green Overlord, Leyline Binding, and Desist hits all those things. It's a little bit awkward that your Desist does hit your own Overlord. You're just going to have to, be aware of that and try to avoid it hurting you if you can. And then I also have 3 Soul Searches. This is probably the weirdest inclusion in the sideboard, but I've actually found this to be pretty good. I was struggling a little bit against the green mid-range decks when they were just board in a bunch of Tranquil Frillbacks, which is just really good against my deck because it shuts down the reanimation plan by exiling your graveyard. Also, being able to blow up enchantments is pretty good against Cruelty of Gix and Overlord of the Mistmoors. Also, I found that against the the domain decks, a lot of their cards actually are creatures that you want to take away. Not just the Tranquil Frillbacks, but also like all their green Overlords. And sometimes I played against people that had like the blue Overlord, the red Overlord. The way the domain decks are built right now, I don't think there's a ton of consistency across people. People are just trying out different things. So that's the sideboard. Let's play some matches. Hand is missing a reanimation component. Still missing a reanimation component. I don't think I need that. I already have 2 copies of essentially the same thing. Opponent doesn't appear to be doing anything. Alright, so I've got to turn 4 Atraxa if I want it. May not go for it right away. We'll see what they do. No, I'm just going to do it, I think. I'm going to wind up discarding a lot. Maybe I should... Maybe I should have thought. Maybe I should have thought through this more because I think that I'm actually not going to just put Atraxa into place, and so I would wind up just discarding all the cards.
Don't overthink things.
I think what I should have done is just Liliana and played the Undercity Sewer. Alright, so this is... I guess they're just playing a domain deck that got a bad draw. That's what's going on. So I'm going to plus this, pitch the Darkslick Shores, and then reanimate the Atraxa. And maybe I find Duress in an untapped black land. If not, I'll play the Surveil land or a different Surveil land. They can Leyline Binding off of the Overlord of the Hauntwoods. Want that one. Can want that one. This gives me an untapped black mana. This is nice. I get to take a Sunfall if that's what they have. Not surprised they can't Leyline Binding. This cleans the finality counter off of it. Though I don't think I have any ways to destroy an enchantment in my main deck. So that's... I guess I do have Liliana the Veil. It's a way that the Leyline Binding could go away. I'm going to start on Chapter 1 of Cruelty of Gix. Their Overlord out of their hand. I don't have anything all that great to tutor for. Guess I'll just get another Liliana, I think.
Enough with the mysteries. I've come for answers. I've always hated crowds.
Gix is really bringing the cruelty of this game. No, I don't think it's Sunfall. I think we're kind of in it doesn't really matter territory. Alright, so this is obviously the matchup for Cease Desist. And it's also a good matchup for Soul Search. I want that. Might want Legion to Ashes. Let's see what I'm taking out. Definitely the Sunfalls. Yeah, I guess I have too many sideboard cards right now. I guess I could take out the I should probably take out some of the Bitter Triumphs. One card I kind of wanted in my sideboard is Destroy Evil for this matchup, but it'd be very hard to board it in. I guess I can trim on Overlord of the Mistmoors. Trim on Chart of Courses too. Draw 2 lands. This hand does lead to a turn 4 Atraxa, potentially. A little bit of a guessing game here whether I discard the Atraxa this turn or I hold it. Because if they have Tranquil Frillback, it's bad to discard it here, but if they have anything that gets the Liliana off the board, I do want to discard it here. So like Leyline Binding be a way that the Liliana would go away. That's what happened.
Fine. take my zombies and leave.
Play this. It always gives me white. I don't know why. I was concerned that I wasn't going to have double black and white. Played that. Hopefully they don't have a way to exit, to remove it from my graveyard. Because I'll just be able to go next turn to rest, do it again. Well, that's rude. I'm in trouble now. Good draw. Shadowy Course would be a good draw. It's not Shadowy Course. Try to course into an untapped land to keep me back in this game. I guess I probably have one more turn, so if I draw the Steamcore weird, that would do as well. Now, if I draw an untapped land, I think I might live. So this is going to be in play for me. And I'll have 7 power worth of lifelink. Tapped land's not going to, I guess. Come on, Atraxa. No. I don't think I'm going to change anything. Sadly, I cannot produce black mana yet. That Atraxa is looking like a pretty good discard target. Why couldn't it just have been Soul Search? Obstinate Baloth is a card.
Happy to help, but I'm taking the credit when we win. One of your friends has to leave.
Hope they didn't draw another one.
Drop it.
I'm just going to sit on this 3 steps ahead so we can do this. Not that scared of the Up the Beanstalk because they do only have 4 lands in play. They could draw Leyline Binding and cast it. I guess they could also cast their Overlords to trigger it. I have a Steamcore Scholar. We have some Overlords. Cruelty gets cards out of the opponent's graveyard, whereas the 4-mana thing does not.
We all have things we'd rather forget.
Yikes. I said I have a 2-turn clock. Well, why didn't they exile this
Luck
thing?
favors the foolish, after all.
I guess they're just all in on drawing Sunfall. They can't still have Sunfall in their deck, though, right? Why would they? I probably should have kept that in my hand. Let's discard fodder for a Steamcore Scholar. Yes, I want white mana, and then I play Underground River and chart a course probably on turn 2. I don't understand how this combo deck works. I've played against it before, and it hasn't seemed very functional. But I would assume that there's a reason people are doing it. Oh, I could have played this land and not taken a damage. The name of the card, Storm Spitter. They get this thing and Storm Spitter and then try to have a good turn. Not sure what the end point is. Doing really well on the land front. Just worried about the cease desist. Screwing me at a later point in the game. They can use Analyze the Pollen to get a second copy of whatever it is they're of their Storm Splitter, which is the key card for the deck. Am I doomed? Just take some damage. Okay. I guess the spell is good. I don't know. It seems like I'm in good shape. 7 mana for this thing.
Distractions. Let's make this quick. Off you go.
And then I'm going to Bitter Triumph the Storm Splitter. I know I'm basic. I could cast the Atraxa next turn, but I don't really want to take 3 damage. I don't really know what, like, how their deck is capable of winning from that spot. I think that all their deck tries to do is make a ton of Storm Splitters and attack me. I haven't been very impressed by it. I do think Soul Search is very good against that deck. And I think Cut Down's going to be good. Sunfall, not so much. I don't know why I have this Disdainful Stroke on my deck. It seems really hard to board in. I think I have... It's in my sideboard because it's sort of a flexible card that's going to be good in a bunch of matchups, but I think that I just don't have enough room in terms of stuff I want to take out in most matchups to want this kind of a flexible card. This should probably be a more targeted, like, card where if there's some card I really want for a specific matchup, this should probably just switch to that. But I don't really know what all of the decks I'm planning to play against are yet. It's pretty hard to want to board in a card like Disdainful Stroke when I've already got 4 Duresses in my deck, and the way my deck functions is like a multi-card plan. There just aren't going to be many cards I want to take out of my deck in a matchup where Duress is a card that I want more of, effectively. Please don't whiff. I was thinking about taking the Analyze the Pollen, but they can't even cast it yet. Full value on that would have been a nice one to be able to take. Oops. That's what we're taking. I'm probably going to play the Bitter Triumph. Either on this Enduring Vitality, or if they play something else, I'm going to play it on that. I think I can afford to discard one of these lands. They do have one unknown card, but as long as it's not a negate, I'm getting Atraxa into play, and it's going to find me another land. So we'll keep my life total high. I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't torch the Tower of the Enduring Vitality just to turn on their Analyze the Pollen. And put through a negate. Lame. Now they can Analyze the Pollen. They whiff with the Picklock Prankster? No, they didn't Analyze the Pollen. Might be in some trouble now. I'm going to double block, even though I know they have Torch the Tower. They might not attack. I just want to force them to expend spells not on a Storm Splitter turn. It's not like the 2/1s hanging back. Like, it's not like the 2/1s are going to get to attack in the face of the Picklock Prankster. I thought about just not even impending this, but this is going to be a tapped 7th land. Oh, I may just be dead this turn, actually. Because they're going to Torch the Tower this. Then they're going to analyze the pollen for a Questing Druid. Oh, they don't have enough things to do that. That was a good draw. I'm gonna put this on Angel Rite. So, come on, Atraxa off the top of my deck. I have a lot of shots of getting Atraxa into play next turn. I've got 3 Atraxas, 3 Cruelty of Gixes, and 4 Rite of whatever it's called. So I got 25% chance. Oh no. Well, on 2 lands. And the Questing Druid is a really... Wait, can't they... They can play Seek the Beast, can't they? Why didn't they do that last game? Or maybe they did. Seems like I should be dead this game now. Oh, this isn't a Questing Druid that they hit off of Seek the Beast. This is the Questing Druid in the Adventure Zone. That's why they never cast it. I understand. I was confused by what I was seeing. I think the Torch the Tower probably kills me now. Alright, I understand how their deck works, at least. Do want lands, but I think Soul Search is one of my better cards against them. Tranquil Furlback isn't that scary when I know about it. I think it's somewhat hard for them to win if they don't have that Enduring Vitality. I do think this is a spot where...
Don't overthink things.
should maybe hold the Atraxa in my hand because I do know about the Tranquil Frillback at this point. And I know about Cease Desist. Boo.
You won't be outsmarting me.
I'm gonna better triumph the Enduring Vitality.
Drop it.
I didn't want to pitch the Atraxa there because if I did that, they're definitely just going to cast Cease at the end of turn and get the Atraxa and whatever the Overlord is out of my graveyard. This way they'll probably just burn the Cease now, would be my guess. Because if they don't, then next turn I'm going to plus the Liliana again, and then the turn after that I'm going to minus. I think it'll become pretty hard for them to win, because this is a combo deck that needs a lot of resources. Liliana seems quite good against their deck. It's kind of single-handedly keeping me in the game. Wait, why didn't they play the Picklock Prankster? Do I need to chop them this turn? I don't think so.
I'm tired of your secrets.
I thought they were just going to play the Picklock Prankster to prevent me from getting my Liliana up to 7. That's not what they decided to do, though. I guess the Storm Splitter kind of does that this turn, but now I can just minus the Liliana if they don't play another creature. I guess they can play the Picklock Prankster.
I regret that.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they did this in
Sacrifices
a
must
reasonable
be
order.
made.
I would be amazed if they got too much in this spot. But maybe they can. So Cavern of Souls Does not provide green mana for use with the Tranquil Frillback. If it did, I would Cruelty of Gix that back.
Drop it.
And blow up the Enduring Vitality. Instead, let's just go digging for... something that does something.
Off you go.
Out of my way. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed seeing this deck. I think that this deck is pretty reasonable, has been my experience so far. I haven't played a lot of matchups where I felt like it was hopeless. And I do think that there are a lot of decks that just struggle against you if you just get Atraxa into play, as we saw in those games. It does seem like there's still a decent amount of looseness in the sideboard, I would say, because there's no way that I'm going to ever be able to board in Disdainful Stroke in the matchups where it's going to be good if I want to board in all these Soul Searches and the 3 Steps Ahead, which it didn't come up in any of the games, but like I said, I do think that the first copy of 3 Steps Ahead, just as a thing to get off of Cruelty of Gix, is pretty good. You could say that you're just going to get Disdainful Stroke, but I do think that there are, sometimes there are going to be things that cost 3 or less that you want to be able to counter. And also 3 Steps Ahead is just such a good flexible card. I guess I did copy a Steamcore Scholar in one of those games, which I don't know that was like particularly exciting, but I was countering the flanker guy, which you couldn't have Disdainful Stroked, and I did make a Steamcore Scholar. So it was good value at least. So I would guess that probably the Disdainful Stroke should be cut for like another anti-aggro card, which there are already a bunch of anti-aggro cards that I didn't get to board in any of the games in this video because I just didn't get paired against aggro decks. But what's probably the case is that depending on the exact variant of the aggro decks, some anti-aggro cards are better than others. Like you probably want something against the Knight Captain of Eos Convoke decks, and you might want something different against the like Prowess decks. And once you figure out what the right things are, you might use this Disdainful Stroke slot to get enough copies of the cards you need in both of those matchups. Is probably how I would move forward in revising this deck. It's possible there might be matchups where Legion up to Ashes is so good that you just want multiple copies of it too. Or maybe you want like a lot of Cease Desists. I'd be kind of surprised if you actually want more than 2 Cease Desists. There is also a new card. I don't know the name of it. Let me see if I can find it. Ghost Vacuum. I kind of thought about having this in my sideboard, which it would really mostly just be for mirrors, which it would be a good card in a mirror. So if you're planning to play mirrors, you probably could, this could be the next card to put in the sideboard. I think that probably this style of deck isn't popular enough that you want to start actually doing that. But this would be a really good sideboard card if you are playing against a lot of reanimation decks. So that's where I'm at with this deck. Hope you enjoyed the video. And I have 1 or 2 other deck ideas I'll probably make videos for in the next couple of days as well. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching.